to stand. I'm just not ready.
Well, cool. It's so good to see everybody. I was kind of hoping that we'd maybe start with just a little community-wide discussion or chat before we did a Q&A.
I gotta
If
say,
that's
my favorite
good
part of
for
this
you
call,
guys.
besides everything, is like watching people's pets wander in and out of the background. You guys have some amazing pets.
I see one in the background of
Yeah. Steven.
Steven's.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. That's
It's a
awesome.
good pet. Hi, pet.
Jason, what's going on, man? How is it up in upstate New York?
It's, I mean, it's nice. It's gotten chilly, and running's been interesting this week with rain one day, snow the next, and then beautiful sunny skies the day after that.
Classic
But
New England weather.
yeah, but I mean, we're doing well. I don't mind the cooler weather. You know,
That's awesome. How's the Taekwondo classes going?
Taekwondo classes are going well. I mean, we're enjoying them, getting the hang of that hybrid mode. But talking with the boss about how especially after our holiday break coming back in 2021 until the vaccine's out, we don't know if we might have to switch back over full virtual again. Well, we're just playing it by ear. But the facility we're meeting at right now is it's in a Native American education center, which usually would have field trips all day, every day of schools coming there. And the only reason we can even use their facility right now is because no schools are doing field trips. So, yeah, and they offer a martial arts program of their own there with different styles of martial arts. So it was a good fit to invite us to come in and join them a little bit. But, we're kind of at the mercy of the direction they choose to go with stuff as well, because it's their facility. So we're just taking it a day at a time.
Yeah,
I think that's been 2020 in a nutshell.
Yeah.
one day at a time, 2020. Oh man, yeah. I think the way that time has been moving in this year is completely different from other years. Good for you guys though for continuing to kind of go with the flow and make it work. I'm sure your students are, just really excited for any opportunities that, you guys can give them,
Yeah.
bearing
Well,
barring that
we're
there's all
we're starting we're starting to grow back up again too. So like the 5 and 6 year olds that just could not follow Taekwondo instruction over Zoom, which is understandable. We're starting to get some more 5 and 6 year olds coming in now that we're in person. So that's helpful, because we went from like a 200 student base down to 80 like overnight with this, and that we felt the effects of that big time.
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, that's
So
that's huge. That's over 50% of
yeah.
your clients. Yeah, I hope that obviously that starts to trend back up for you guys. And it's
Yeah.
nice to know that there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel, I guess. Just reading the New York Times yesterday and kind of seeing a timeline for possible, vaccines, at least in the US, to start getting out to healthcare workers and some of the seniors by maybe starting at the end of this month. So that could be really great. And then for, kind of some of the rest of us, hopefully something by summer. So
Mhm.
that was pretty, at least for me, I felt like that was encouraging, and that kind of helped my mental state, which has been in flux a little bit the last couple of weeks with the holiday and like trying to like tell 12 people like we're not doing anything together. It can't happen. And for people being like, that's, we can do this, probably nothing will happen. I'm like, but we're not going to do this. And then having to like get everybody to have that kind of consensus around Thanksgiving and with the surging, I don't know. For me, it was just been a bit tough mentally, and I think has kind of I've had some mental ups and downs lately. So I was like, I felt really good to read that article, and I hope maybe that having some kind of timeline when we haven't had any timelines at all, basically, except for we knew that at some point we were going to get another surge in numbers. Yeah, maybe having that timeline is kind of helpful with dealing with the uncertainty. and it maybe for people whose businesses are really affected too, it can give you guys kind of something to look at and be like, okay, here's where we can like really start to grow again. Because I know it can be really tough. We're thinking maybe we want to do another virtual Taekwondo class with you because it was so fun the last time we did that.
I'm game. I'm getting better at the virtual instruction thing. So, I got a whole bunch of new fun exercises. So we got you covered.
I think it was good for my range of motion issues.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, awesome. The high kick. Oh man, it was like 2 inches off the ground. It was not
Got
good.
some tight hips.
Yeah,
No,
to be honest, I've got no issue kicking to the head when I need to, but I'm not one of these super flexible martial artists that can just kick 100 kicks over the head. And last Friday, I know you saw on social media there when I took a Taekwondo class of my own, like I took somebody else's class, and she was focused on her high kicks curriculum and the exercises she was having me do. I'm doing them waist level. I'm like, that's my hold it height. Yeah.
As long as your head is like right about here, we're good. Counter height. Don't bend over. You're gonna get kicked in the head.
That's my rule of thumb. If you kick out their knees first, it's a lot easier to kick them in the head afterwards.
Oh man,
I like that.
This could couple as like a self-defense class for athletes out there on their solo runs to feel more comfortable kicking to the knee and the head.
I feel like if it was another runner, you wouldn't even have to kick their knees that hard. I feel like everyone's knees are kind of teetering just on the verge of like at any moment.
Yeah.
Ish could really hit the fan.
Let's be honest, it's not necessarily the other runners we all have to worry about. That's the problem.
True.
Runners got each other's backs.
Right.
Usually, yeah.
Awesome. Well, shall we dig in? TJ accumulated the questions for this week, so I'm going in totally blind, which could be exciting.
Yes, which also means that I have to read some very long questions here, which were very well written by some of our athletes, and I really appreciate it because without these questions, I'd have nothing to talk about, and I would just ramble on for 50 to 60 minutes and bore you guys to death. Instead, we'll talk about some relevant training topics, and I know I'm looking at you, Tom. I know you're really stoked to hear about these training topics this week. Cool. All right. So yeah, what am I?
You caught me. I was adjusting my Mobo board below me.
That's awesome.
Always be mobilizing.
Yes.
That's so good. Yeah. For those of you guys who don't know about the Mobo board, I would definitely recommend that for balance.
And ankle mobility.
Tool. Yeah, that thing is sweet. We
Yeah.
got one like 6 months ago and really enjoy
Been
kind of
testing
warming
it for
up on
trail
it.
runner.
Yeah. Yeah, not sponsored. That's just
Hashtag not
we
sponsored.
like that product. Cool. Well, should I hit you with a tough one first?
Hit me with a tough one. Let's do
You've
it.
had a lot of coffee, I think. So
I've just
you're
been
ready to
yawning
go.
through this introduction, so make it stop.
We're already recording, just to give you a heads up, Zoe.
Oh, perfect.
This is a tough one. I don't
God.
even know how to answer this. Do you all recommend any running or endurance sports, movies, or documentaries? The ones I've seen are really inspirational and help me stay focused.
Movies. Trying to think of like the last we watched. Brittany runs a marathon. I'm the person, like anytime I watch a YouTube video or anything where people are finishing a race, I will just cry because I love it so much. We watched Brittany Runs a Marathon, which is like an actual movie, like a mainstream movie. I thought it was pretty good. I do want to caveat at the top and say I thought it had some kind of toxic themes around like body acceptance that I didn't think were really great. But what I did love was that it was essentially about a woman who falls in love with the process of running and runs the New York City Marathon and like creates really healthy friendships around running that I thought was nice. I don't think that, I don't like my belief is that you never need to change your body to reach your athletic potential. And I think that the movie sent some harmful messages in the other direction, but it did have some really nice positive messages about like, you know, just like staying the course and like working through hard stuff in your training and like using it as a way to connect with others. And even though it's more about road running than trail running, I thought it was like a somewhat, I definitely cried, literally cried at the end. So that's got to be pretty inspirational.
That was pretty good.
Trying to think of another one. I feel like I have to watch like like every week at work, I have to highlight like some video on YouTube. I think The Life in a Day, it's a pretty famous like ultra running. I can't even remember who it's by. Is it Timothy Olsen?
Might be.
Yeah, but it's like the most classic of all like 100-mile YouTube videos about how ultra running is kind of like you get to experience all of life in a day. And I think that's one of the best ones because it doesn't like sugarcoat how like crappy races can be in the middle, particularly ultras, and like it doesn't shy away from highlighting.
Is that the Hard Rock one?
I think it is Hard Rock, yeah.
That might be the Timmy Olsen.
Timmy Olsen?
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah, infamously doesn't do well at altitude, so...
Yeah.
But
That's
it's
a
great.
pretty good one.
I think that one's one of my favorites. I feel like I'm blanking on.
I like the Ginger Runner 100-mile week. I thought that was
that
really
one is
cool.
really good. Yeah.
It wasn't about a race. It was about, you know, trying to push yourself to kind of new limits in training, also in like a very safe and healthy way, under the kind of guidance of a really great coach. And I think each day was, I don't know, it was just a really interesting to see him kind of go through the highs and lows of trying to run 100 miles in a week. That was huge.
Yeah. Ooh, probably one of my favorites is the Brendan Leonard one with REI about training with his friend for Run Rabbit 100.
Yeah, that's a good one too.
I can't remember that one. I think it's called How to Run 100 Miles. We'll include all of these in like a thread on Facebook later. Seems like you guys, oh my God, like
Yeah,
look at
you
these
guys
resources rolling in.
Okay, let me read some out. All of the Solomon TV short films. Yeah, those are really good. I liked, what was it? Transamericana with Ricky Gates. That one was pretty good.
That one's like a full-on
That's
movie
like an
too,
hour,
yeah.
40 minutes of your day. I don't know what these links are. Sorry, guys.
Oh yeah, this weekend is the Virtual Trail Running Film Festival, sponsored by Trail Runner Magazine. Tickets are $10 on Ultra sign up. Yeah, that could be really fun. When is that? We could even do like a Microcosm virtual watch party. That'd be so fun.
Ooh.
Where Dreams Go to Die, Ginger Runner, film about Gary Robbins' attempts at Barkley, The Hard Way.
That was the Timmy Olsen one, I think.
No, it's the Timmy Olsen one is called Life in a Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm sure that there's like a million films about Timmy Olsen though.
You know, my most inspirational movie, non-sports related of the year, Eurovision, Fire Saga. Don't know if you guys have seen that.
We really loved that.
That's one of the best movies of all time. I recommend you watch that.
Yeah, we're getting
for
a
some
lot of
inspiration.
thumbs up. We spent a socially distant week with my parents in the mountains this summer, and we watched every single Will Ferrell movie. We watched a full like career retrospective, and that was a real standout.
That's the best one.
I found it genuinely moving. And I thought Rachel McAdams was amazing.
Yeah.
Definitely
I cried
a
a
career
little bit
highlight.
during that
TJ
one.
teared up.
But I was on the floor. No one could see me. It was great. All right, moving on.
Highly recommend One Whiskey plus Fire Saga.
Zoe, what are some mantras you use during training to get through the hard times?
That's a great question. Mine are like so ridiculous, but I think
Come
that
on.
like just to be like to give some like general advice before I just tell you what my like ridiculous mantras are is that for them to work, they need to feel really authentic to you. So like what works for someone else may not work for you. And it like, I think it's kind of a trial and error thing, but like they should really speak to who you are as a person and athlete. Most of mine have to do with being like a magical trail running unicorn.
That's awesome.
Because like that does speak to me. Even though it sounds like very goofy, I think having a mantra that like really taps into like my fun, sparkly, goofy side is super, super useful. Sometimes I'll tell myself that I'm a majestic trail running goddess. Like in more serious moments, I'll tell myself that like you've done hard things before and you'll do them again. Or that you've gotten through every tough day, you've gotten through every hard workout, you've survived every hard race. Like this is not going to be what ends you when things get really challenging. Yeah, or I'll like just listen to Katy Perry and use whatever the chorus of my favorite Katy Perry song at the moment is for my mantra. What about you, TJ? What mantras do you use? I feel like they're probably pretty different than mine.
They're very different. I've I've been using one really simple on each like right-footed stride. I say I feel good, and then on the next one I say I feel great, and I just repeat that over and over, especially when I'm not feeling good in a race. I find that kind of tricking myself mentally into thinking that I feel good helps me find the light at the end of the tunnel a little bit quicker. I also use a mantra that comes from my meditation practice. Sometimes during races, especially when I feel really tired, I say, I'm not this mind, I'm not this body. I found that one is really effective. Obviously, more of a personal mantra, and you guys might not be able to relate to that, but that's okay. I would recommend, just like Zoe says, like have a mantra that, I don't know, is somewhat connected to you or that you've used before. I think sometimes in training, it's really helpful to practice the mantras, especially during your workouts and things like that. So I might practice those mantras on during my intervals and things like that, or during tempo workouts to try to kind of go beyond what I'm capable of a little bit, maybe, or ward off that fatigue for a few extra seconds or minutes.
I feel like for me, having a mantra like, you are an amazing sparkly unicorn, or you are a majestic trail running goddess. Like for me, being a unicorn or a goddess isn't like, you can still have bad days and you can still mess up in races or workouts and you can still be that thing. So it feels like a really authentic mantra to me, and that it still saves space for like not feeling so great. And in that way, it feels even more authentic throughout the process of like, if I'm deploying a mantra, maybe I'm at a low point in a race or an FKT or like a workout. And that way I don't feel bad for feeling that, like for feeling low or whatever. But that way I can still like hold space for the whole experience. I also like, if I feel energetically low, I'll tell myself to unbonk myself. Or if I'm having like a really tough mental moment, I'll say, be curious about what's on the other side.
Yeah, I think sometimes these mantras too are important because they can kind of connect to some of the more process-oriented goals that you have during a race, which is something that we've talked about on a couple other calls in the past. So if we go into a race and or we're on a workout and we're trying to hit, X, Y, or Z number for that interval, pace per mile, or, we're going for this result at a race and something happens that derails us, having some process-oriented goals can help you to stay on track and not fall apart mentally. I think the mantras can help in that same way. I might take it a little overboard, but so I've run races where like that's all I say. I feel good, I feel great for like 3 hours, and it seems really ridiculous, but I ran really well. So maybe it worked. I couldn't tell you, but it kept me focused. And if you keep telling yourself that you feel great, if that's the only thing you're thinking about, could help. And I think that maybe connects to something like the central governor theory, that your mind kind of controls exactly what happens with your body while you're out there, especially when it comes to kind of warding off some of that routine fatigue that you get during the race. A lot of that is really mental, where you start to feel like your muscles can't give you desired output levels, or you feel like you're slowing down. A lot of that starts in your mind. So having these mantras to kind of trick yourself into continuing forward is really, really important.
I'd be curious to know if anyone else has a mantra that they want to share, because once again, I know that the breadth and depth of these is going to be pretty varied, just because there's so many different humans on the team, and probably not everyone either feels good, feels great, or is a majestic unicorn. And all mantras are welcome.
Mm-hmm.
You can drop it in the comments section or good as hell. Yeah.
Nice.
A lot of my mantras are either Lizzo or Beyonce related. It works.
Singing songs is a great way also to see if you're running at a conversational effort. I
Yeah.
feel like people who have run by me on the trails are like, what the heck is that guy doing?
Or like
Just testing to make sure I'm going easy.
yeah. I will tell myself like I'm a boss, but in like the rap lyric way. Meek Mills has a lot of great mantras.
Need more than 2 sentences for conversational out loud though.
But
More-
if you
more than
yell,
2 words.
I'm a boss.
I'm a boss. I must be doing it right.
I'm a boss. But you say it twice, like how he says it in the song.
I like Cena's my legs are strong. I think that's another good thing. Like just reinforcing to yourself, even if they don't feel strong, that you're strong, that you're, that you feel good, whatever it is. That's so important.
I'll sing the song Booty Work to myself on like big power hikes. Left cheek, right cheek, left cheek, right cheek.
That's hilarious.
It works. Basically like any rap song that came out in 2012. Excellent mantra.
Yeah. James brings us back to the gratitude call that we had a couple weeks ago now. I think expressions of gratitude while you're out there are really important.
Yeah.
Thank those legs for carrying you up that mountain. Pain is in the mind. Yeah, nice. Chelsea, good. Yeah,
I love that.
That's definitely relevant.
Yeah, yep.
Cool.
I remember something one of my favorite writers, Haruki Murakami, wrote in his memoir, what I talk about when I talk about running. He talks about discomfort not being optional, but suffering is. And that's something I think about. Like, you're going to be uncomfortable, but like you can pretty much manipulate what your experience of that is. And if you wanted to avoid discomfort, you wouldn't be here. So, accept the discomfort and then just like, oh, I love this. Forward is a pace. That's nice. I love that.
Yeah, wow. We talk about that a lot, especially for athletes who are kind of pushing themselves to go a distance that maybe they haven't gone before.
Yeah.
It's really important to remember that all forward progress is forward progress.
Yeah. Relentless forward progress.
Yeah,
That's like Amanda Basham's pretty famous.
I love that.
Or she espouses it. It's also the name of a Brian Powell book. So, but I remember something I leaned on heavily in Grand Traverse was like, you can feel sorry for yourself further down the trail. When I had a pretty bad moment, it was like, you can feel sorry for yourself in that direction. You can feel sorry for yourself in that direction, and just keep like kicking the self-pity can down the trail.
Well, cool. Yeah. Thank you guys for some of your mantras and affirmations as well. Yeah, let's take this next topic.
Yeah.
Are you ready for this
I'm
one?
ready.
Kylie might be a good one for you to chime in on.
I imagine Kylie just shows up to all these like Friday calls. She's like, all right, they're going to bring something on me. What's it going to be?
This is an easy question, Kylie, so don't worry. We've got your back on this one. What are your thoughts on following a vegan diet as an endurance athlete? Do you have any insights or opinions on tracking carbohydrate or protein intake? I personally hate tracking things, but I'm vegan and was curious if you had any experience or anecdotal evidence on making sure you nailed a certain number of these macronutrients and how it could or does affect running. Well, I'll give my answer first, and then Kylie, you can give your answer, which will probably be more specific than mine. I think there is nothing wrong with being a vegan runner. I think that, well, we're vegan and have been for a long time. But I think that it is important to some extent to make sure that you are aware of what you're eating and how much you need. I think particularly important is protein intake. This is something that like I've had conversations with Kylie on about my own eating habits and making sure that I hit specific amounts of protein per day. I think that there's a fine line though where you're like counting every single gram exactly and maybe overthinking it too much. So trying to find that balance between like, yes, I do need protein. Any athlete does, no matter what their diet is. Yes, I need carbohydrates because carbohydrates fuel my activity. They directly correlate to better running economy and to better times in workouts and better results in races and long runs, etc. So yes, you need all that stuff. I don't think you need to track it exactly per gram, but you should have an idea of what you're eating, how much carbohydrate or protein, specifically protein, there is in what you're eating, and make sure that you're always getting enough. Zoe?
Something that actually this is just probably what Kylie would bring up, but I'm going to say it because I think it makes me sound smart. Something she wrote for us in a column for Trail Runner about how athletes can make sure they're getting enough protein isn't necessarily to track it, but to like whenever they're having a meal or a snack, ask themselves the question, where is my protein source? And that way, whenever you're eating a waffle or a banana, you're like, where's my protein source? Ah, yes, let me add almond butter. Or when you're having your mid-afternoon snack of like a fruit parfait, you're like, where is my protein source? Oh, great, I'll add cottage cheese or yogurt. And just asking yourself that question can kind of help you add in sources of protein to everything you eat. And that's a great way to just make sure that like you're eating it throughout different parts of the day, because another thing I've learned from Kylie is just like eating, cereal for breakfast, sandwich for lunch or whatever, and then waiting till dinner to like be your nutritional catch-all is not a great strategy. And making sure you're getting sufficient protein throughout the day is the way to go. I know that like in my past of eating, like counting things is not like like any kind of restriction or counting or like diligent tracking is not a great place for my brain to be. So I always like to think about adding things in and using Kylie's method of asking myself, where is my protein? What else can I add to this? As being a really good way to like keep my relationship with food flexible, loose, healthy, and still like get sufficient protein.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way.
TJ's strategy, and this is the best nutritional strategy I've ever seen, is to make Ben & Jerry's milkshakes with protein powder.
It works when you need to have 150 grams of protein a day, apparently. That's a hard number to get to. And I don't like counting. Yeah. So I'm not sure who wrote this question. I can't remember, but yeah, I don't like counting either. So
I can add to that a little bit.
Yeah,
please
Kylie,
do.
Please. Thank you.
Okay. I was like, I didn't know if I should start or not, but
I was gonna chime you in.
Yeah, so I think you guys make a lot of the good points that I usually make with vegan athletes that I'm working with. I think another thing that can be helpful is initially familiarizing yourself with how much protein do I actually need. So yes, getting a little more like, oh yeah, an idea of I don't need 50 grams. I actually need like 100 grams a day. And then from that point, kind of breaking down, all right, so that's about maybe 20 to 30 grams at a meal, 10 grams at a snack. And then, sorry, the dogs are being loud.
I thought Sean might be sawing something in the background.
And then from there, what you'll want to do is familiarize yourself with the main vegan sources of protein that you eat and how much protein is kind of in a certain portion of that. So visually, you can, in the future, once you know what that looks like, then you can visualize it in your meals and snacks. So
Kylie,
you have that visual approach versus obsessively counting grams.
Kylie, can you give us a little like 101 on vegan protein sources?
Yeah, I mean, the main sources that people I work with use are going to be tofu, tempeh, nuts, seeds, beans, lentils, quinoa is a source as well. Any kind of protein powders, peas, trying to think of any other.
I like edamame a ton.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Edamame. One big one that people think has a lot of protein in it is alternative milks, which a lot of them are like 98% water. So looking for a milk, alternative milk that has a little bit more protein, like a soy milk or pea milk, like Ripple.
We're big Ripple fans. Anything that we can, like, we're big chocolate milk fans. Another thing that TJ, one of his most epic milkshakes is Ripple, Ben & Jerry's, and protein powder.
Yeah.
Those are for the high.
We're just waiting. We want that Ripple sponsorship.
Yeah.
Waiting on the big chickpea bucks to roll in.
Reach out to them.
Yeah.
The Banza pasta is like one of my personal favorites, the chickpea pasta. I use that all the time, and I and I'm not vegan. I think it's a great source, and has more protein in it than, you know, your standard whole wheat. So.
Totally. There's one protein source you didn't mention, and it's what is it? Because they make at Studio City, they make the best buffalo wings out of it. Seitan,
which is
a
just
pretty
vital wheat gluten.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And it's very high in protein as well.
Matt just lit up because he gets it. I love that. That's how I feel. We got some when we were in Denver last weekend. We got like a big carryout order from Studio City, and then just watched Game of Thrones while gorging on vegan burgers and pizza rolls.
Yeah, I'm having my best training week ever, so I attribute it to that. Thanks, Kylie. I think that was really, really helpful, and listing out some of those protein sources too for vegan athletes. If you guys have any question about, I know that if you go online and you do a Google search and you say, how much protein do I need? You'll get a link to a calculator that asks you to put in, you know, your weight and things like that. And it'll tell you how much protein you need per day. But
make sure it's for athletes, because I think this was something I got really, like, before I started working with Kylie, I had the assumption I needed X amount of protein. And then after just like one consultation with her, I realized I was shorting myself by like a bunch, by like a prohibitively large amount of protein. So we can link in the YouTube thing and online to Kylie wrote a really great piece for Trail Runner that just kind of sums up this entire discussion we have, plus what her equation for calculating how much protein you need is.
Yeah, I would avoid the generic kind of very simple equation of calculating how many grams of protein you need per day, because it doesn't take into account the fact that you're training. So it's going to give you a much lower number. So like for someone like myself, it says, oh, you need 60 grams of protein per day, but I need upwards of 150 because of how much I train. So each one of you guys, if you have any question about that, I would recommend that you contact Kylie. And sometimes we see, especially with vegan athletes, you're maybe not getting that protein that you need. So if you're ever feeling fatigued or you're not recovering well between workouts and there's a bit of a pattern developing there, I would recommend having a consultation with Kylie, dialing down that specific number for you, and then going to the store and just becoming aware of how much protein is in each serving of the protein sources you like. For example, 12 ounces of Ripple chocolate milk has 8 grams of protein. That's not that much. And tofu has like 12 grams or something per serving. It's not that much. So you need to eat a little bit more of those sources, or eat them more frequently in the way that Zoe kind of recommended at the beginning of this question, where you have something with breakfast, or then after your workout, you have, I like Gnarly Nutrition vegan protein supplement. It's really good. It has like 24 grams per serving. So that's a very easy way to get some extra protein in, and then a little protein with lunch. And then after, maybe before bed, you have a protein source that doesn't have as much carbohydrate in it, because the carbohydrate can affect how you sleep. So you want to have some protein that doesn't have as much carbohydrate. Protein synthesis is better when you're sleeping. So you might actually take in more of that protein and use it for recovery, and so on. So like every little meal should have that protein in it. And so you don't want to just have like all your protein at dinner. You want to balance that out throughout the entire day.
Kylie, what are some things that athletes can look for to know, like, oh, if I'm feeling this way, it might mean I need to pay attention to my protein intake? And hi, Ellie. Ellie nails her protein intake, let me say.
I had to break
out of everyone.
So everyone can hear now. Some ways that you might know that you're not getting in enough would be recovery, maybe not recovering well enough. It can affect your sleep. It can affect your appetite. So you might frequently get cravings later in the day for even for like carbohydrates. And protein plays a strong role in immune support as well. So if you're getting sick often, That could be another indicator that you're not getting in enough protein.
Another thing that I've recognized, at least in myself, and I've heard from other athletes, is just not feeling satiated after a meal. And then that also could be that another macro is how much fats you're eating as well, which are also an important thing that we've left out of this conversation. But that satiation, especially I think for vegans, eat some more fats, avocados and things like that are really great. Nuts are really, really great. Don't be afraid of olive oil and things like that, in my opinion.
Eat all the things.
Yes, balanced plate. Always eat
Performance
enough.
plate.
All right, we're
Kylie's
flying
concept.
through these questions today. This is a broad topic. An athlete had recently asked me, how can I be better at facing challenges? And I'll throw this one to Zoe, but I think we've got a lot of really great athletes who are really good at handling challenges on this call right now. So if you guys have
Are we thinking
anything
of
to add,
this
please.
more in terms of like a
chime
life
in.
challenge or a training challenge?
I think we
both.
don't have to contextualize it as either one. I think both are kind of two sides of the same coin, right?
Sure. Yeah. I guess like basic concepts that I think of are like grit and resilience, and that facing or encountering challenges doesn't define who you are as like a person or athlete, but your ability to work through them does. Like, how you respond to a bad race, or how you respond to an injury, or how you respond to a bad day at work, rather than like a great race or a healthy season, or like a great day at work. Like that doesn't really demonstrate that much about who you are as a person. And I always remind myself that when I'm encountering challenges, like that is my opportunity to really demonstrate what my true character is, right? Like anyone can respond well when things are going great, right? Like it takes a very special, tough, resilient person to encounter injury or a setback in training or a plateau in training or like a setback or a challenge at work and say like, awesome, this is my chance to demonstrate who I am, right? Like how you respond to the tough moments in a race are way more important than like how you respond to like, oh, things are feeling great, So I remind myself that this is like a great opportunity to define or redefine who I am as a person or athlete. And that like the more challenges I can accumulate, the better I get at like encountering them. Something that we tell athletes a lot is that life doesn't really get easier. You just get more capable at working through it. Like so many times we'll see athletes like encounter like, pandemic, relationship issues, like work issues. And like those things are all normal and like a part of training, but those things never go away, right? Like there's never going to be a time in your life where you're like, oh my God, things are just so chill and easy. There's always going to be challenges and they're just going to get harder. But the good news is that you can get more capable. And the more that you like, whenever you encounter challenges, you're like, oh, heck yes. Like this is an opportunity for me to learn and grow and see it as something to like really like latch onto and work through and not become like, oh no, I had a challenge. Like, should I quit or give up? Like, no, this is an opportunity for you to re-engage with the process.
Yeah, that was a great answer, Zoe. When I think about this question, I really do think about grit and resilience. And it kind of leads me back to a book that Zoe and I both really like. It's called Grit. It's by Angela Duckworth. And in that book, she has I think it's called a grit test. And you guys can Google that, and I'll try to remember to share the link. But you can go in there and take a really quick, like 3-minute survey that measures how much grit you have. And the purpose of that is that science, okay, like all of these surveys of really successful people across various fields, whether in sports, in business, in tech, in any number of different kind of areas of life, the consensus is that very successful people, thanks, Tom, they have higher grit scores. So they're more resilient to challenges. Now,
and that doesn't mean that they encounter less challenges.
Right. So how do we get better at facing those things? I think we can go back to looking at our mantras or our affirmations, kind of building ourselves up in moments that are challenging. I think it can also help to reframe how we look at challenges. I think, at least for myself, this is really important because I'm always, and if you are coached by me, you know, like I love balance. I'm always like asking my athletes to try to find balance in their work life, you know, areas, and balance that with training, so that way you can get the most out of everything. But you know, beyond balance, the fact of the matter is that you need challenges in order to grow. So you need acutely stressful situations in order to grow. So I think, you know, facing smaller challenges helps you build up some of that resilience. You're not born into this world a resilient or gritty person. You learn over time through challenges, through, you know, how you respond to those challenges to be better at them. So every challenge is an opportunity to respond in a way that's beneficial to you. If you have something in your career that's tough, you know, that is a really hard moment, and I don't want to downplay that. But that's an opportunity for you to pick yourself back up and to move forward and to stay the path. Something that I think we see a lot as coaches, and why we ask everybody to make a year-long commitment to training, is because some people, they'll quit running after one or two life challenges get in the way of training. And it really is true that life doesn't get any easier. We just get better at dealing with life by accumulating these experiences over time and having more tools to help, you know, kind of move through that, whether you're using meditation to kind of balance yourself so you can clear your mind and confront a challenge, or your network of people to talk to and to get advice from is growing, so that way you have more people to get information from and to help you through that challenge, to lean on them, whether you're working with a therapist or a nutritionist or a coach, whatever it is. We can diversify our tool sets in order to be better and more capable of this. And also sometimes having had those past experiences, even if they're really small, drawing from those. So something that I like to do is to draw from race experiences or tough workouts, because I think those are really acute moments in the training life or athletic life where we have these small challenges and we're asked to like do hard things. And those are really no different than anything else that's hard. Maybe the stakes are a little bit lower, but that's even better because nothing happens if you fail at your workout. You just had a bad workout. You can move on to the next day. Sometimes if we fail at our job, getting back up and moving forward in the direction we want to go is a little bit harder, but we can draw on some of those experiences. Like, I can do tough things. I remember Zoe's mantra from earlier, like, I've done tough things before, I can do them again. And so having that grit and kind of manufacturing that grit and letting it grow over time is really, really important to helping you face those challenges. And when you think about the evolution of these things, I think every single person on this call, whoever's going to listen to this, has moments in their life where they've gone through something really difficult. Don't appreciate how important those moments are. Think about them from time to time.
Specifically, if you don't mind getting a little vulnerable, what's an incident maybe from the past year or so that you've encountered a challenge in training or your career, and that you've approached it with the growth mindset and used it as an opportunity as much as a challenge?
Yeah. Wow. I think there's countless moments, honestly. You know, one that I really think about that happened. Yeah, I guess it was like a little bit about this time last year. I had a really great contract with an outdoor company and pushing in my own professional career as an athlete. And out of the blue, I got fired and I lost a lot of money, like rent and insurance for an entire year, a ton of money. And overnight was like, oh my God, what do? I just got fired from like my freaking career that I've worked 10 years on. Holy shit. And I you know, as everybody does in those moments, you react and you're like emotionally, and you get a little frustrated, and it was hard. And I had to kind of go to that tool set where I said like, okay, it's just money. Like maybe this wasn't even the best match for you. I had to work
Pretty
through
famously,
it.
this company that won't be named ended up being embroiled in a pretty large PR scandal, like literally the week after you guys separated, which felt like a nice sign from the universe that
it was a tough moment, I think, very financially, because I had also gone all in on coaching and taken it from something that was supported by other endeavors and my athletic earnings to just being a coach. So it ended up, you know, I tried to support myself. I looked to Zoe, I looked to friends and family to help me with my mindset around, you know, being fired. And I ended up, you know, a week later signing a contract for a lot less money, but one that is really valuable to me to this day.
And more ethically in line.
And much more so. So, yeah, I mean, I think that is one that stands out. I think for me, it was all about kind of trying to take a step back after having an emotional reaction to the challenge. And then, you know, with that clarity of mind, thinking about like, what are my other career options here? Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I try to approach everything. I tend to be a pretty emotional person. So like my first reaction to a challenge is always emotional. And I'm like, I hate this challenge. Like, I don't want to do this. And then, you know, 10 or 15 minutes later or a day later, however long, when I take that step back and clear my mind, talk to people, meditation, which is really something that's big for me, then, you know, I can approach that and start to problem solve and work forward. And just knowing like, any one challenge doesn't mean you have to, you know, a setback in your career doesn't mean you have to start a new career. It doesn't mean you have to quit what you were working towards.
You didn't quit skiing.
No.
You didn't quit trying to be a pro athlete.
No. But I felt like it was going to be harder for me to be a pro athlete. And fortunately, that was not the case. So kind of sometimes the stories we tell ourselves about the challenges that we have are fabricated, and maybe a little bit those stories might be clouded by fear, a little bit of uncertainty. So I'm really trying to embrace uncertainty, especially in this year. I found that is something that I need to work on, and also reframing stress as a positive thing that helps us grow when we're able to also couple that with appropriate amounts of rest. Yeah, new blog post hopefully coming out in the next week or so on that, because it's a really cool and new emerging way to think about stress. More on that later. Yeah.
Hey guys, can I add one thing? I think those are all really good points for like unforeseen challenges that like pop up. Like for the stuff that you know is coming your way, is like the training, the planning, the preparation. That makes those big challenges, whether they're athletic or, you know, personal. If you have a big meeting, like put in a little extra effort and plan and prepare for like the questions somebody may answer, or like make sure your presentation, you know, looks as good as it can. You know, put in the work ahead of time, so that when you do, you know, get punched in the face or whatever, you're ready to respond and come out, you know, with your best tools, whether it's grit or a mantra or whatever. You know, that's I think most of the time in my life when I've had like really hard things, I was, you know, try to be planned ahead of time. So you're not sitting there trying to react and, you know, get your balance. You're already pushing back and fighting.
Totally. I love that perspective. I think that, you know, so often, I mean, good planning can negate or help kind of like you said, like reduce like, you know, so many of these challenges. I think that's like a really important perspective as well, is like sometimes I think people will avoid doing the kind of work, right? Like I think, you know, training as an example, right? Like going into a race well trained, rather than I think a lot of people have the experience of not really training for a race, or like not planning for a presentation. And in some ways that can be a way of like keeping ourselves from being truly vulnerable to what we really want. Like showing up at the start line and being like, oh, whatever happens, happens. I didn't really train. So if I do well, awesome. And if I don't do well, then like, fine. I didn't, you know, I'm not really invested. I didn't train. So like, whatever. or, you know, doing that like with a job interview or a job application or like some sort of, you know, big work project, rather than going all in and saying like, I'm putting myself out there, I am planning ahead, I am preparing, I know I will face challenges, and I'm ready to be vulnerable and accountable to the work I've put in.
Yeah, thanks for that perspective, Matt. I definitely think that that's something that maybe as athletes we're all used to planning and thinking, and athletes that work with the coach specifically, because we see that plan every day, and maybe that trickles in, or that ripple kind of comes into our life in other areas. Like I know that I've become more organized as I see my training lining up in this way, I line my day up in that way. And then it's very compartmentalized. Every minute is accounted for, periodized. And all of that preparation also allows you to be prepared to face those challenges. I really think that that's super important. And sometimes even, and this is big with the athletes that I coach, but in race preparation, we sometimes, you know, I encourage people in the week before a big event to visualize the hard moments and to visualize the correct response to the hard moment. So like in a race, the hard moment is like, for me, it's like I'm at mile 20 of the marathon and I'm ready to fall asleep on the side of the trail. I visualize myself feeling that like tiredness sink in, of that like the wall that you hit in the marathon. And then I visualize that and try to feel it. And then I see myself responding with like running and moving forward, eating another gel, putting my head down, just moving forward, just moving forward. And I think sometimes that visualization process, where we've in a way, in a sense, in our minds, experienced that challenging moment before, allows us to react to it in a better way that promotes forward progress, rather than, for me, which is just to take a nap on the side of the trail and completely blow the race, which is what I want to do. But when we program ourselves and prepare and visualize and have all of these tools, we make it a lot easier for ourselves to continue with that relentless forward progress. And I think I would really recommend to all of you guys reading the Angela Duckworth book. You know, countless stories of grit, a lot of research behind this stuff. You know, it's not just that, you know, we want athletes to work with us for a year because it's great for Microcosm. It's really great for you guys. It's good for everybody to work through challenges and to practice these things, to build up your grit score, to become more resilient individuals, whether in training or life. It leads to successes. It leads to you being able to achieve the goals that you want. And those goals are just the impetus for something else. Because this process, it only has one end, and it's not a finish line, not a racing finish line anyways. But this stuff matters. So going through those hard moments, as much as it sucks, as much as 2020 has been a hard moment for everybody, whatever we've been able to achieve this year, all of you guys have had amazing achievements. Imagine on a regular year what you're going to be able to do, because you could do it on a year with all of these underlying stresses, with all of the uncertainty. So, you know, I think just thinking about and framing things in that way really helps. And the preparation, thank you, Matt, like the preparation along the way is paramount to all of this too.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like Matt totally exemplifies this idea, just because like he has a pretty high demand, like, I don't know if stressful is the right word, but like he does not exactly like, he has a pretty tough job and he still trains like a boss. And, you know, I know that doesn't just happen. Like Matt is king of planning ahead and like has totally like not let the pandemic deter what he does in terms of his like racing and training. And I think that's awesome.
Great. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. I was going to talk about how to contextualize and not overcomplicate our training, but we'll do that on Monday.
We'll do that in the next 2 minutes.
We will not, because it's more than 2 minutes of content. Tom, guys, read Angela Duckworth's book. It is amazing. It's a really quick read. So many good stories. And you can listen to it because Tom has some credits available that he'd love to generously donate to some of you guys. Tom, what's a good way to get in contact with you? If they
You want to go through you?
uh
Forward me their email.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, we can do that.
Shoot
Yeah.
us an email.
Shoot us an email, guys. I'll connect you with Tom if you want to get that audiobook. He's got some credits.
We highly recommend it. It's been one of the things we've talked about most in the last year.
Yeah, and I think that kind of coupled with some really cool new studies about stress and death rates are what is really interesting to me right
Microcosm
now.
has a super low death rate.
I know, and that's because everybody here knows how to reframe stress in a positive way. Let's I can't wait to see you guys on Monday. Everybody have a great weekend, and be on the lookout for some new content coming soonish.
Happy Friday. Let us know what your mantras are.
Yeah, work on those mantras. Bye guys, thank you.